Speaking for myself, heaven has always intuitively been about the hope of reuniting with my loved ones who have gone before me. The fear of hell has less to do with suffering or separation from a God that I can't say I really know or ever knew. Who would actually want to live forever? Why would I want eternal life? What exactly would the point be? In the last several years, I've had to face death numerous times, and most recently was the passing of my own father. There's really nothing that can prepare you for such a monumental loss. My papa's terminal illness and demise came at a particularly turbulent time for me, as I was not only coming to terms with the grief of losing him, but I was also confronting the crumbling of my own faith, knowing that it would have broken his heart. Being Catholic was immensely important to my father, and he saw it as his duty to pass it on to me. Church has been an essential part of my life. More than 30 years of regular mass attendance, confessions, involvement in the parish, rosaries, divine mercy chaplets, and so much more. It has been a source of community and has played a vital role in forming my intellect and conscience. However, the last 10 years or so, I've reluctantly been on autopilot so as not to break my parents' hearts with my doubts and objections. My concern for my mom and my dad, who is no longer here, is mostly what has kept me in the pews, though I still do maintain a great curiosity about the biblical tradition and church history. But beyond that, I cannot escape the bitter truth that a good deal of what keeps me tethered to the church is fear. Fear of hell, fear of not being a good person in the final analysis, fear of my own very human desires being my ultimate downfall. And perhaps the church really is the only antidote to the paradoxes and weaknesses of human nature. But when I ask myself why I'm afraid of those things and why I want heaven, I come up with the wrong answer. What I'm supposed to desire most of all is to be pleasing to God, to worship only God, to be a saint, to strive for moral perfection. I was, after all, created to know, love, and serve God here in this life and the next, and the only thing to fear is eternal separation from Him. That's what I ought to aspire toward, and hopefully feel in the depths of my soul. The heart of the spiritual life, according to St. Thomas Aquinas, is the surrender of intellect and will to God. But in retrospect, despite decades of church, catechism, retreats, the sacraments, struggling against vices, grappling with teachings on faith and morals, I can't say I ever truly felt that way. I've never had a transcendent experience or some kind of mystical contact with the divine, at least not in the context of religious establishments or practice. All I know is what I have been indoctrinated with. Jesus has always been a distant concept, the idea of God's love incarnate who sacrificed everything to save humanity. And religion has always been about upholding dogma and moral standards. I've pressed on more out of a sense of duty and love for my parents than a deep sense of belief that I can truly claim as my own. The moment I stepped out of the protective shell where I spent my younger years, the relatively rigid iteration of Catholicism that I was raised with just didn't hold up in the face of the world's complexity. As I grew older, I realized that if I set aside the promise of heaven and the threat of eternal conscious torment, the Catholic tradition just seemed like a useful body of knowledge and beliefs around which to structure society. With its many absurdities and lofty theological abstractions, a Catholic framework can impose some sort of structure on a world full of strangeness. Religion, broadly speaking, is invaluable for social cohesion, and regardless of its objective truth value, it remains a powerful tool for providing a sense of meaning and a set of justifications for a morality that is functionally objective. Speaking for myself, heaven has always intuitively been about the hope of reuniting with my loved ones who have gone before me. The fear of hell has less to do with suffering or separation from a God that I can't say I really know or ever knew. The terror that strikes the depths of my heart has everything to do with never seeing my wife, my mom, dad, aunts, uncles, grandparents, friends, teachers, and every wonderfully loving, beautifully flawed creature that has in some way left their indelible mark on my soul. I fear an eternal consciousness of their absence and the inconsolable ache of knowing I'll never be able to hold them close again. Pain and torment don't frighten me. Life on earth is already full of those things, and I gladly endure them because I'm blessed to have just a little more time here with those that I love. Ideas of heaven and hell have been omnipresent across time and culture, and historically have been a source of meaning and an incentive for abiding by a moral code. Is there a hereafter? Should we just submit ourselves to a particular dogmatic religious tradition for the sake of possibly having eternal life and avoiding the inferno? I don't know. And after losing my dad, I now feel a greater sense of urgency to be present in this one life that I can be certain of, rather than to live based on fear of the unknown. I've come to believe that if you need the threat of hell to be a good person, you have no heart. And if you depend on the promise of heaven to find meaning, you're already as good as dead.